The Detroit Lions fell yesterday 24-17 to the Miami Dolphins. The Detroit Lions had the chance to come back and win the game on a potential game-winning drive where Hendon Hooker was leading us down the field, and then a defender by the Dolphins jumped up, made a fantastic, phenomenal interception to seal the game, as the Lions did end up falling 24-17. There was a lot of positives and a lot of negatives in this game. The first half looked very good for the Detroit Lions. Very, very good. Kyle Allen looked very good this game as well. Now, I wouldn't say quite as good as the last game, but he did look very good this game as well for the most part. But the second half was brutal. The Lions only scored 3 points in the second half, and the offense could just not get anything going. We wouldn't have scored those 3 points if it wasn't for a turnover that we ended up getting from special teams, actually. If we wouldn't have gotten that turnover, we probably wouldn't have scored any points in the second half. The second half offense was absolutely brutal. So let's go ahead and get into it. We'll go over the Lions stats, and we'll run through the Dolphins stats. Lions fall 24-17. They are now 1-2 technically in the preseason. I still count them, though, technically as 0-1-1. Or excuse me, 0-2-1. That's what I count them as technically. I do not count the Falcons game as a win. I count that as a draw or just nothing in general since we didn't finish it. And it could have very well went either way. Kyle Allen, 14 for 17, 124, 2 touchdowns, no picks on the day. Kyle Allen looked very good for the most part. Was for the most part very accurate. Now, Kyle Allen did have 2, 3, maybe even 4 balls that were very high that he overthrew in this game. Multiple to start the game. One to Tom Kennedy, one to Isaac Tesla, and I believe the other one was to Jackson Meeks. It could have been Dominic Lovett, but I believe it was to Jackson Meeks. I know one was to Tesla, and I know one was to Kennedy, and I know there was one other one. I think it was to Jackson Meeks, and there might have been another one as well, but those are the 3 that I can think off the top of my head. Kyle Allen, and those were all incomplete. And I think there might have been one as well that was high that a receiver ended up bringing in. But Kyle Allen, besides those 3 overthrows that I know for sure he had, was very accurate and was very good today. Kyle Allen looks very comfortable in the pocket, and he's very accurate. He seems just more experienced than Hendon Hooker, which is obviously a true statement as well. And it looks to me, after Kyle Allen's performance today, he has won, for sure, without a doubt, the quarterback 2 job. The only way Hendon Hooker wins the quarterback 2 job after today is if Hendon Hooker throws up the best game he's ever thrown up in a Detroit Lions uniform next week and Kyle Allen struggles. That is the only way, and even still, Hendon Hooker probably won't win the backup quarterback's job. But that would be the only way that he would have a shot to win the backup quarterback job. So after Kyle Allen's performance yesterday, it pretty much confirms Dan Campbell loves Kyle Allen. Said he played very well again yesterday, and that he would rather take Kyle Allen over Hendon Hooker right now as the quarterback too, just from what they've seen throughout the preseason. Dan Campbell did say he wants to give Hendon Hooker a lot more reps next week, but he wants to give Kyle Allen reps as well. So it'll probably be Kyle Allen the first quarter, if I had to guess, and then Hendon Hooker the last 3, or Hendon Hooker the first 3 and Kyle Allen the last quarter. Something like that is what I would assume is what Dan Campbell meant from Hendon Hooker getting more reps, is that Hooker will probably play an extra quarter, and Allen will probably play 1 less quarter. That would just be my guess, though. Moving on to Hendon Hooker. Hooker did not play as well today, and I'm going to say something that I never thought was really going to say. Hendon Hooker was 6 for 13, 61 yards, no touchdowns, and an interception. And to be quite frank with you, I'm out on Hendon Hooker. I am out on Hendon Hooker. I posted on Twitter after his first couple of drives yesterday when he came in the game that I am officially out on Hendon Hooker. I thought this guy was going to be, at worst, a very good backup in the National Football League. And he still could very well be that. But his time as the Detroit Lion is tick, 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 tick. Is coming to an end, rightfully so. His time as a Detroit Lion needs to come to an end for the sake of his career and for the sake of moving on, have him moving on from the Detroit Lions. It just wasn't meant to be. Hendon Hooker, I am officially out on Hooker. He is not a good quarterback right now. Hendon Hooker is not a good quarterback right now. You thought Kyle Allen was inaccurate on his overthrows. Hendon Hooker was the most inaccurate I've ever seen him be. He threw 2 balls overthrown that were some of the worst looking throws I have seen from a Lions quarterback since Tim Boyle and Nate Sudfeld, but specifically Tim Boyle. One was to Zach Horton on a 3rd and 12, trying to get a first down, was extremely overthrown. Even if it was Calvin Johnson, Megatron, trying to catch that ball, there was no way he would have been able to bring that in. That's how far it was overthrown. It was too far in front of him, and it was too far above him. It was ridiculous. And then there was another one, I believe it was to Jackson Meeks, or maybe it was Dominic Lovett, that was insanely overthrown as well. It was more just over the head, but it absolutely horrible throws. He doesn't look comfortable in the pocket. He's forcing too many decisions. The guy still has all the physical traits to end up being a good quarterback, but right now he is just not. He is right now. I think he can be a quarterback too, but he's going to be a below average quarterback too, and he's probably ideally a quarterback 3, not a quarterback 2. I think an area like the UFL, a league like the UFL would be great for Hendon Hooker to join. I think that's where he needs to go, or he needs to go to a team where he's going to have an opportunity to especially win the quarterback 2 job and get an opportunity to play a lot. I don't know what team that would be. That's why I think the UFL would be the best opportunity for Hendon Hooker. And I will tell you, if Hendon Hooker was to go to the UFL, he'd probably be the best quarterback in the UFL. He has all the physical traits. I still think he could be a very good backup in the NFL, but with the Lions and right now in the NFL, he is not a good backup quarterback. I'm officially out on Hendon Hooker. I wish the best for him. He still has next week to try to have a chance to make the practice squad. I think after this game, his chances of actually making the practice squad have risen from last week, because now I feel like after this horrible performance today, teams are going to be less likely to claim him off waivers if he does end up getting released. And the Lions don't end up keeping 3 on the 53-man, they'll probably obviously try to bring back Hendon Hooker on the practice squad. I don't know, I wouldn't say likely, but I would say possible that they would bring back Hendon Hooker on the practice squad. And I think that has now risen up to probably about 50% from 15-20% what it was last week of him coming on the practice squad after this horrible performance, as I don't think he will get claimed. I think there's a 50-50 shot he won't not get claimed after this horrible performance today. But it really just comes down next week. If Hendon Hooker struggles next week, I think if the Lions want to keep him, he will make the practice squad. Nobody will claim him. Now, if he has a decent performance to a good performance next week, then I think a team will end up claiming him, and his time with the Detroit Lions will officially come to an end. Moving on to the running backs. Jacob Saywers, his statistical numbers was not great again, but I thought he looked very good as well. 13 for 39, 3 yards a carry on the nose, but Saywers was way better than that again. He is just so elusive and so quick to, I think, the point where he's almost going to be guaranteed a practice squad spot. Spoilers, he is making my practice squad once again. I am completely fine with him being running back 5 now and the running back on the practice squad. I would be shocked if anybody pushed. It's really going to come down to the Lions keep a 5th running back with that running back being on the practice squad, or do they just keep 4 and have all those 4 in the 53-man and not have a running back on the practice squad? That's what it comes down to, but I did really like what I saw from Jacob Saywers today. The only way he doesn't earn a spot in the practice squad, he does not make the 53-man, there's no way, but the only way he would not earn a spot on the practice squad, in my opinion, is if he gets hurt or if he just has a horrible performance next week. Sione Vaki played his first game of the preseason. Looked typically good. 5 for 30, 6 yards to carry. Was very good on special teams. Actually forced a forced fumble on special teams that the Dolphins did end up recovering, but it was a nice punch out by Sione Vaki. Deion Jackson had his first game as a Detroit Lion, who the Lions just signed a little under a week ago. 4 carries for 20 yards, 5 yards to carry. Really didn't see much of him. I'm gonna have to rewatch the film on those four carries he had. I know he didn't pick up a block that I think ended up in a sack from what I heard as well, so I got to take a look at that. So I'm not going to really comment on Deion Jackson. He's going to have a great performance next week to make the practice squad. Craig Reynolds, I don't know why the Lions keep playing him in the preseason. I absolutely hate it. 6 for 13, 2.2 yards a carry. They were just risking injury there. Hendon Hooker did nothing on the ground, neither did Kyle Allen. Jackson Meeks absolutely balled out today. 7 for 93, 1 touchdown. And I'm not going to really spoil it yet, but Dominic Lovett's spot on the 53-man roster could very well be slipping away, man. I think it's really going to come down to Jackson Meeks and Dominic Lovett. Jackson Meeks is going to make more plays for you on the offensive side of the ball than Dominic Lovett, but Dominic Lovett has the special team ability that Jackson Meeks really does not have. He can punt return, he can kick return. Jackson Meeks really can't do that. So it's just the fact, do the Lions value him that much as possibly a backup punt returner slash kick returner, Dominic Lovett, or do they value more on the offensive side of the ball when it comes to depth at the offensive side of the ball who can make plays if needed due to injury? Guys like Jackson Meeks. It's really going to come down to right now, but if Jackson Meeks performs well next week, he's now had back-to-back great games. If he plays good next week and Dominic Lovett does not do anything really like he did this week, I think there's a really good shot that Jackson Meeks ends up pushing him out for the wide receiver 6 role. Jackson Meeks had a very good day today. Caught another touchdown and caught a touchdown last week. Looked very good today. Had another pretty deep, big ball. Caught multiple from Kyle Allen. Caught multiple from Hendon Hooker. Essentially, all Hendon Hooker's completions were to Jackson Meeks. Essentially, all but like one or two. Isaac Tesla had another very good performance today. And I'm already about to say, I'm not going to 100% say it because I got to see it during the regular season. But I'm already about to apologize to my reaction on Isaac Tesla. The guy is going to be so good. He's going to be such a good wide receiver 3. And I think he has the possibility to end up being a wide receiver 2 and even potentially a wide receiver 1. But obviously I'm not going to go to that. It's just the preseason. But I very well think if Tim Patrick struggles to make an impact to begin the season as wide receiver 3, Tesla could very well win the wide receiver 3 job not even halfway through the season. I could very well see that. So Tim Patrick has really not done anything throughout training camp. So if he does not do anything to start the season, Tesla could very easily win the wide receiver 3 job sooner rather than later. Tesla had another very good touchdown reception. Back-to-back weeks for touchdowns for Jackson Meeks and Isaac Tesla. Had a very good one last week and a very good one this week that I thought was going to be intercepted this week. And I thought it was a bad decision by Kyle Allen, but it was actually ended up being an absolute dime by Kyle Allen to Isaac Tesla for the touchdown. I believe it was an 18-yard reception for the touchdown. Tesla looks very good. Tesla actually had a drop, you could almost say. It was one of Kyle Allen's overthrows, but Tesla could have very well brought it in, and Tesla never drops the football, so that's surprising. But Tesla had another fantastic day today. Zach Horton had 2 for 15. Technically had 3 receptions. 1 got called back. Zach Horton, he kind of stood out a little bit today, but I'm still not very high on him. He had another holding call today. I don't know. I think Zach Horton's going to make the practice squad, but I'm telling you, I'm sticking on the train that we only keep 2 tight ends on the 53. I'm sticking with that, and then we keep obviously 1 or 2 on the practice squad. But I'm sticking with that. We only keep 2 on the 53 man right now. Nobody's sticking out to me right now to win that tight end 3 job that's currently on the roster. Dominic Lovett did come back from injury today. Had 2 for 14. Really wasn't out there a lot. The Lions could be just being precautious with that. Ronnie Bell had 1 for 11. Really wasn't out there that much, but I still see him making the practice squad right now. Tom Kennedy's really actually struggled this preseason, in my opinion. Only 1 for 8, and I believe that was on a screen pass. He's been dropping quite a bit of balls this preseason. I still think he makes the practice squad, but if Ronnie Bell or Dominic Lovett and Jackson Meeks play very well next week, he could possibly not make the practice squad, but I think the Lions keep him on the practice squad just because he's been with the Lions for an extremely long time. He's got experience, and the Lions just really don't have a lot of experience in that wide receiver room right now besides, when it comes to the depth-wise, besides really Khalif Raymond. So Tom Kennedy, I think, makes the practice squad just because of experience and how much the Lions like him, but he's struggled this preseason. Jacob Sayers 1 for 5, Sione Vaki 2 for -2. On the defensive side of the ball, Grant Stewart looked great again today. I'm going to have to apologize for my opinion on the Lions signing Grant Stewart. I really didn't love the signing to begin with, but man, he looks so good. He looks like Malcolm Rodriguez, a little bit undersized, but he is so quick. He's faster than Malcolm Rodriguez, but he plays exactly like Malcolm Rodriguez. He's physical, great tackler. That's exactly what Grant Stewart is. Good, decent in coverage, not great, but decent coverage, and great on special teams. Grant Stewart is exactly Malcolm Rodriguez when it comes to size and how he plays, except Grant Stewart is quicker. I'm not saying Grant Stewart is better than Malcolm Rodriguez. That's not what I'm saying. I would take Malcolm Rodriguez over Grant Stewart right now. But Grant Stewart plays exactly like Malcolm Rodriguez. The only thing Grant Stewart I think does better than Malcolm Rodriguez, or has the ability that Malcolm Rodriguez does not, is his speed. He is way quicker than Malcolm Rodriguez, but Grant Stewart looks like an absolute dog. He definitely fits the Detroit Lions, and I'm actually really liking this signing, so I'm kind of taking my opinion back on what it was when we originally signed him. Nick Whiteside looked pretty good today. I don't know why everybody's so on the Nick Whiteside train. I think he's decent as like a practice squad cornerback, but he did look particularly good today. I know he had one pass breakup. He might have had two. I won't be mad if he ends up getting the cornerback 6 job on the 53-man roster, but I view him more as a practice squad cornerback. I think the Lions do need to bring in a veteran cornerback in free agency to be that cornerback 5, cornerback 6 that has experience. I don't know who's out. I mean, I know who's out there. I don't know who the Lions would bring in. James Bradbury's out there. Hasn't played in a couple years. I guess they could bring him in. Gilmore's out there, obviously. He's probably going to want to start somewhere, though. He wants to start here. Caleb Farley, former first-round pick, is still out there, dealt with injuries. Maybe you bring him in, give him a shot. So the Lions do need to bring somebody in, maybe go after a safety, and you convert Avonte Maddox back to cornerback. I don't really know, but the Lions definitely need to look at a better cornerback, in my opinion, for that cornerback 5, cornerback 6 spot. But Nick Whiteside did look pretty good today. I think he probably earned his spot at least on the practice squad. DJ Miller I thought looked good as well. Had a pass breakup or two. Probably not going to make the 53-man roster, but if he plays well next week, could very well make the practice squad. Tyson Russell kind of struggled today. I thought he looked pretty good throughout the first 2 preseason games, but struggled yesterday. So his opportunity to get a spot on the practice squad now has taken a hit. If he performs well next week, I think he could earn a spot, but he's got to do something next week because he struggled today. Anthony Pittman did not play his best game today. Did make a really nice tackle. It almost looked like a horse collar, but it wasn't. Very nice tackle by Anthony Pittman, but he did struggle today, in my opinion. From what I saw, obviously I have to rewatch the film, but Anthony Pittman, not a great performance today. Lauren Strickland did not start today over guys like Ian Kennelly and Eric Howlett, so that makes me think that I was right about Lauren Strickland and that he is really not that great of a safety. Everybody loves him in the Lions fan base. I just don't. He looks more like a corner. He's built more like a cornerback to me, and he plays more like a cornerback than a safety. He's undersized to me a little bit. Not severely, but he is undersized in my opinion. He's just not that great of a safety in my opinion. I don't know. He's good on special teams, fine tackler, fine in coverage. But God, I don't know. There's something about him I just don't really like compared to guys like Ian Kennelly and Eric Howlett. And apparently the Lions think the same thing, as he was not starting today. Ian Kennelly and Eric Howlett got the start of Lauren Strickland today. Anybody else to highlight here? Chris Smith, really didn't see him today. I think his chance of getting a spot on the practice squad is taking a hit. Hopefully he does something next week. Luke Barco had a pass breakup. He could earn himself on the practice squad if he plays well next week. Nate Lynn did not play as good this week, but he still had a couple pressures, almost got a sack. Deron Gilbert, finally saw him on the defensive side of the ball, but really didn't do anything, did not have his best performance. Miles Adams was out there quite a bit, really didn't do much. Al-Qadim Muhammad looked pretty good when he was out there today, but wasn't out there that long. Isaac Uku technically had 2 sacks. One got called back with a penalty, and then he ended up getting another one, getting that sack back later on that drive where that one sack got called back. Uku looked very good today. I think his chance of getting a spot on the practice squad has risen now, because I didn't have him making the practice squad before. I'm not saying I do have him this time around when that 53-man roster prediction 4.0 comes out, but I think the chance of him making the practice squad has risen. Eric Howell looked pretty good today, had multiple pass breakups. Also allowed some receptions and coverage, but I thought he looked pretty good from this part. Ian Kennelly, really didn't see much of him. I mean, he was out there, but I don't really think he made any big plays or anything. Cunningham looked pretty good again today. And Keith Cooper, I did really like Keith Cooper's performance from yesterday. So, not a big fan of Keith Cooper, but I really did like what I saw from him yesterday. And I don't know how much the Lions like him. I think there's a really good shot he makes the 53, even though everybody really has him making the 53, and I don't. But I liked what I saw from him today. Alan George also had a pass breakup, almost an interception that he should have had, but he also did allow a touchdown. I'd be shocked if he made the roster. He just hasn't been with us long enough. The chance of him making the roster is extremely slim. Jacob Saylors was good on kick returns. Grant Stewart returned a couple as well, which I don't like. Deion Jackson returned one. Jake Bates went 100%, 1 for 1 with a long of 33 and 5 extra points. Or excuse me, 3 extra points. Or 2 extra points. Man, I can't do math right now. And Jack Fox 50.7. And looking at the Dolphins, both quarterbacks played pretty well, Zach Wilson and Quinn Ewers. I'm a big fan of Quinn Ewers. I don't know why he fell to the 7th round. Struggled last week in the preseason, but looked pretty good this week. Both of them looked pretty good. Ollie Gordon looked good. I believe it was a 6th round pick. He looked pretty good today. Theo Weiss kind of killed us, 6 for 80, 2 touchdowns. Dwayne Eskridge, 3 for 53 and a touchdown. Tanner Connor made some pretty big receptions, 6 for 48. Everybody was involved in the offense. Taj Washington, 4 for 33. Grayson Murphy had a sack for them. Cameron Goody had a half a sack. I believe this is Jordan Phillips, who was from the draft this year. I don't know when he was drafted. I think he was drafted in the 4th or 5th round. Was pretty productive for them today, 1.5 sacks. And Ethan Robinson had a pick as well. That pick, they picked off Hendon Hooker on that phenomenal interceptions to end the game. And that was about it to highlight from then. Former line, Fatu Melifano did not play a whole lot. Really didn't see him out there. So no starters really played for each side at all today. Maybe Willie Gay ends up being a starter for the Miami Dolphins, veteran linebacker, but that would probably be like the only starter for them who played today for both sides of the football. Moving on to the team stats and wrap this video up. 356 for the Dolphins, 274 for the Lions. Passing yards, 259 for the Dolphins, 170 for the Lions. Rushing yards, 97 for Dolphins, 104 for us. Yards per play, 5.8 for the Dolphins, 4.3 for the Lions. 21 first downs for the Dolphins, 18 for the Lions. Third down efficiency, 7 for 13 for the Dolphins, 1 for 12 for the Lions. We've really struggled on third downs this year in the preseason. 0 for 1 on fourth down efficiency for the Dolphins. We went 100%, 3 for 3. The Lions did. Total plays, 61 for the Dolphins, 63 for the Lions. Sacks allowed, 1 for the Dolphins, 3 for the Lions. Their offensive line held up pretty well today. Ours was horrible today. I do have to touch on this real quick. Our third, fourth string offensive line might be the worst thing I've ever seen. Gunnar Britton and Zach Johnson, their debuts for Detroit Lions was probably the worst debuts they could have possibly had. Gunnar Britton, I do not think he allowed. I don't think each one allowed a sack. They could have. I got to rewatch the film, but they were getting beat consistently, especially Gunnar Britton. Gunnar Britton looked like Matt Nelson out there. I'm not going to say he is Matt Nelson. I'm not saying that. But, man, did he look like Matt Nelson out there. Was getting beat every single time, it felt like. Played a little bit better towards the end of the game when Hendon Hooker came in the game. Well, he was already in the game when Gunnar Britton came in the game. But on that final drive, he looked a little bit better. But, man, did he not perform well. Neither did Zach Johnson. Zach Johnson had a holding penalty that could have been a holding. It ended up being a holding, but you could argue it couldn't have as well. But Zach Johnson was getting beat quite a lot as well. Michael Lanish struggled today. Giovanni Manu, had looked pretty decent up until this point, in my opinion, in the preseason. But, man, did he struggle today. And I'm going to put a hot take out there. If Giovanni Manu struggles next week, Dan Campbell really doesn't seem too high on Giovanni Manu. And if Giovanni Manu struggles next week, and if he is not starting with the second-team offensive line next week, I think there's a slim shot, like very low, but 15%, 20% shot. He actually does not make the Lions 53. I know they traded a future third-round pick last year to move up in the fourth round to get him, but Dan Campbell really doesn't seem too high on him. Says he needs to get more confidence. If he struggles next weekend with the third, fourth-string offensive line again, I think there's a 15, 20% shot, even a 33% shot, that he doesn't make the Lions 53-man roster, because I do not think anybody would poach him off the practice squad. So if the Lions do not value him that much, look that for be a surprise cut candidate. I know it sounds crazy, but I would not be shocked. Punts, 4 for the Dolphins, 7 for the Lions. Penalties, 9 for 60. Yes, got to talk about this too. 9 for 60 for the Dolphins, 13 for 86 for the Lions. There was a total of 22 penalties this game accepted, with I believe 26 thrown. These refs were diabolical, throwing penalties. I don't know why. I posted on Twitter. They just decided to roll out of bed and throw 24 penalties is the number I threw out there. But why would they just decide to roll out of bed and throw the most penalties you could ever throw in a preseason game when this really doesn't matter, and you're throwing penalties that are not even penalties when you watch the playback? Like, why are they doing that? It's absolutely diabolical. It's absolutely diabolical why they were doing that. I absolutely hated it. So I really, really hope that next week that doesn't happen, or any game in the season. It was absolutely diabolical, the penalties today. The Lions had a lot of penalties they obviously got to clean up, but man, them refs were on something as well. I swear they were. Fumbles lost, 1 for the Dolphins, 0 for the Lions. And that fumble that we did get, that turnover that we did get, was on a muffed punt return by the Dolphins. I believe it might have been Dwayne Estridge. Um, that was the turnover that we ended up getting. That ended up resulting in a field goal and our only points in the second half. Interceptions thrown, 0 for the Dolphins, 1 for the Lions. In time possession, 30 minutes and 19 seconds for the Dolphins, 29 minutes and 41 seconds for the Lions. And one thing to touch before I wrap this video up, Ahmed Hassanin left the game pretty much essentially once he first came in the game in that third quarter with the third and fourth team. Pretty much got hurt immediately when he came in the game. It ended up being, I believe, an elbow injury. I can't remember the injury that he suffered during practice this past week as well. I think it might have been a knee injury, if I'm not mistaken, but I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But he left the game, did not return, immediately head to the locker room once that injury popped up. Walked off under his own power, but obviously just because it's an elbow injury. But went straight to the locker room, did not return. Dan Campbell said he's going to probably be out a while. So if Zadarius Smith is not back on the Detroit Lions by this week, we're going to have a problem. So I just wanted to point that out there because that is not good news. Obviously, hate to see it. Wish the best for Ahmed Hassanin. Hopefully the Lions bounce back next week. I really feel bad for Hendon Hooker. I really, really do. Hope he can do something next week to earn his shot somewhere as a third-string quarterback, whatever. But I think the Lions learned a lot this game. But there's still a lot of things we got to figure out next week. So one pride go Lions. And yes, we absolutely have to clean up those penalties. That was horrible. One pride go Lions.